Hey, what's going on YouTube? It's Darko, and welcome back. So I had a completely separate video for you guys today, but I wasn't sure how to kind of set this up or split this up, and I didn't want it to be too long for anybody, and I like to rant a little bit too much about cars, so I figured I'd just split this up for everybody, do a little bit of a mini-series, and just kind of give my takes on things that are happening today in the car community as a whole. The biggest thing that I wanted to kind of go over is something about modern cars, and something that I've been seeing quite frequently lately is that modern cars aren't memorable. I've seen this video from That Dude in Blue titled How Modern Cars Became Boring, which posed the question of, are modern cars actually memorable? And I just wanted to kind of give my 2 cents on that, because I feel like things have changed drastically in terms of the media, in terms of the capabilities, in terms of the handling, in terms of interior and everything else that really changes what the older car community, the 90s and early 2000s car community, considers memorable. Because our brains are filled with all these older cars and things like that, and all of these extra experiences that the new generation doesn't have. So it feels like a little bit of a disconnect for us talking about our experiences in the cars that we love versus the cars that the newer generation is starting to love. So I wanted to start things off by getting into the accessibility of cars, because that, I feel like, is the biggest contributing factor of how people look at cars today and how people interact with cars as a whole. So if we wanted to kind of take a step back into yesteryear, let's say it's 2001. We have a plethora of cars, or well, not necessarily a plethora, but quite a few cars that we can consider fantastic cars. This is, I think, right on the cusp of the R34 GTR and things like that. So we had a few videos here and there, but it wasn't taking over our media like they are now. The biggest thing that we had were Honda Civics, were a lot of the older cars, like the older muscle cars and things like that. Ford Mustangs were fantastic. Just really obtainable cars that the everyday person could get. And the biggest thing with that is that we had the TV shows, we had the magazines, we had the movies, and we had the games, especially the games. And that's where the biggest difference is right now. So, along with the games, along with the movies and all that kind of good stuff, if we wanted to immerse ourselves in car culture or anything else, we could pop in Need for Speed, we could pop in Gran Turismo and play the game and drive the cars that we looked at in these magazines. We could drive the cars that we seen in Fast and Furious. We could do all of that stuff without having to break the bank, because it was accessible for us at the time. That's all we needed for us to get that feeling, because we knew all we had to do was just play the game a little bit longer, maybe save a little bit of money, not have to worry about eating sometimes. Ramen was definitely a cuisine of the time, and we were just living our lives. We were saving every penny that we had. We were putting it into our cars that we had, because it didn't really matter if you had a Acura Integra LS or an Acura Integra GSR, because everybody just enjoyed the fact that you had an Integra. Even the inside of the car, you couldn't really tell the difference between a GSR or an LS or anything else, because everything was relatively the same. Everything was super reliable, because the car manufacturers back then weren't looking to update the chassis every 2 minutes. They weren't looking at trying to update the interior every 2 minutes. They weren't looking at anything but the reliability of the parts and the reliability of getting the person from A to B.
No, I don't want to dance.
What about now?
Okay.
Now it is a vastly different landscape. Everything's being changed every 2 minutes. There's not the same mentality of use the same stuff that works. It's more so the mentality of, hey, this is new. We have something new now. Oh, we have a new suspension. We have new alternators. We have new XY, insert whatever random new part that we wanted to add to whatever car that we had. And we've only used the old part for 2 years, and now we're switching it off for something else. And we're going to use that for another 2 years before we switch it off to something completely different. And that's where I feel like a lot of the culture is starting to shift, because it's hard for us to understand or to take in a lot of the different imagery and a lot of the different things that we liked about cars or that we like about a certain car, because back then it was there for a lot longer. We had 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years of the same type of car. We had years of looking at the same interior, but loving that interior because it was so functional, loving the interior because it was so reliable, loving the car because it was so easy to work on, loving the community because it was accessible, because everybody was still trying to figure out what worked. People had random bolt-ons, people had big piggyback ECUs, random hack together setups, but that was the fun of it. It was trial and error, and it was a lot of just people asking questions. The forums were blowing up because nobody knew what to buy. Nobody knew what to do. Nobody understood offsets on wheels. Nobody understood how to lower their car properly. We were cutting springs and hoping for the best. Whereas now it's a lot more streamlined. Things are a lot easier. People don't have to worry a whole lot, and you can just buy a lot of the stuff off the shelf. You'll have 5, maybe 10 things that you buy for a car just to make it faster, handle better, a little bit more reliable, and you're good. You don't have to worry about much. But back in the day, it was the Wild West. It was fun. We blew up engines. We broke parts. All while breaking parts, we were learning about the car. We didn't understand how to tune very well, so we were going to our friend George down the street that said he could tune, but obviously didn't know what he was doing, so now your engine's blown and you have to replace it. But replacing an engine back in the day wasn't super crazy because you didn't have all that crazy electronics, and engines weren't super expensive. Nowadays, completely different landscape. Completely different set of rules when it comes to tuning a car, when it comes to modifying your car, and things like that. The biggest part of learning about tuning and learning about your car was testing it, was going out and driving it. And while it was fun, it was a little time consuming, but we created such a ecosystem, such a community of people that wanted to help because they had the same issue, because they tried the same parts, because after a while we started to kind of have like a streamlined set of things where what we did was easy to follow, and we didn't really go off course, because if we went off course, that was even more headache because we didn't know what was going on. If we went off course, that was even more of an issue because the tuners didn't know what to do with these cars. So now you're just hoping for the best. And that is where things start to get crazy, because while we could immerse ourselves with the car culture as a whole, while we were surrounded by cars, while everything was car culture, everybody was trying to make a name for themselves for just modifying their car. A lot of people in the early 2000s and the 90s and things like that, they didn't worry about modifying the engine a whole lot. They might have put an intake on there and called it a day. That was it. They were worried about putting crazy paint on there. They were worried about doing crazy decals. They were worried about doing the craziest rims. Hell, we didn't even worry about lowering our car in a lot of cases, because who cares? It's just a car. It's fine. This is my car. This is how I want it, and this is what looks good to me. And we put oversized wheels on there with rubber band tires and all that fun stuff, broke rims and all that fun stuff. Found out the hard way how to that Rubber band tires were not the best experience for a car. Just learning that things worked was the journey. Learning what broke was the journey. Learning how to fix it was the journey. And as we go through that journey, we become connected to those cars because we know how to fix them. So it's not necessarily a thing of us not necessarily not caring about newer cars. It's that we've spent so much time with the older cars that we don't want to go back through that same process of breaking things and fixing things and having to go through a teardown and all that fun stuff, because now a teardown isn't going to cost just $500-$600. It's going to cost $10,000 just to replace an engine. Who wants to do that? Especially if we have all this other money dumped into the car, if we have all this money dumped into the suspension, if we have all this money dumped into whatever other components of the car, now we're going to risk hurting the engine for what? Why? Doesn't make sense. So we've come a long way in terms of the car communities from the early days to now, and that's where a lot of the disconnect starts to rear its head. Because with tuning nowadays, it's easy, it's smooth, it's relatively reliable. All of our tuning nowadays have progressed so far that you don't have to worry about too much. There's software that already has built-in limits for the AFRs. There's software that has built-in limits for a lot of the different things and a lot of different components in the cars, so we don't hurt our engines. So we can reliably squeeze a little bit of additional power out of our car without hurting the reliability. Since we aren't hurting the reliability of the newer cars that we're tuning and things like that, we're not breaking these engines down, and we're not as connected to these cars because we don't have to do it. We don't have to spend the time. All we do is download a tune and we're off to the races. So the younger generation, or the newer car enthusiasts that are coming into existence, they don't understand why we are so connected to our cars a lot of the time, because they don't have that experience of sitting down, breaking things down, and caring about the cars like we used to.
I'm taking it back. You watch. It's cool. I'm taking it back.
So I wanted to kind of take a little bit of a step back to the media part of things, because the media, I feel like, is where a lot of people are starting to be confused about what to do with their car. Like I said, we had the games, we had the TV shows, we had the movies and things like that. But a lot of the movies and a lot of the games didn't just focus on a straight drag race. They were about how usable the car was. Even Kit from Knight Rider was a usable car. There's so many different cars from yesteryear, or so many different videos and movies and things like that, that would tell us to not just focus on the engine and making it faster. It was about making it useful for you, for what you needed. It was about taking the car to the track and figuring out the limits of the car so you could figure out what you wanted to do next to your car. It was figuring out that you didn't have to make the fastest thing in the world in a straight line, because you're going to be hitting corners, and you're now worried about suspension more so than power at this point. We're worried about the tires more so than the rims or the wheels, because if we were worried about rims or wheels and things like that, everybody wouldn't be running RPF 1s. So the biggest thing for me is that when we see these older icons, these legends that we made from the tuner magazines, from the videos, from the movies, from the games that we played, because we've seen these cars so much, we have to take a step back and understand that these cars that we grew up with, these cars that we've seen so often, that were so repetitive, that were here for us every day, those cars are our legends. because media allowed it to be. The landscape now is completely different. We have TikTok, we have Instagram Reels, we have Facebook Shorts and things like that. That's fast media. That's everybody getting hit in the face with a bunch of different stuff all the time. But what do you have on these platforms? A lot of the time we have takeovers. I'm not going to say how much I hate takeovers, but I hate takeovers, so yes, don't do that. We have swimming through traffic during rush hour. Another one, you guys. Pardon my language. But yes, stop doing that. And then we have drag racing. That's where media is starting to push things because that's what kids want. They just want some kind of crazy excitement. They don't want to have to spend the whole time figuring out why you built the car and all that fun stuff, because a lot of times it's not fun. A lot of times it's too complicated. A lot of times it doesn't make sense to them because they're the short attention span kids that had tablets all the time. So if it's not fast and flashy, they're not going to want to sit down and watch it. And I understand that part. So when we're taking that into consideration, what else? What do you do with the car? If you're 16, 17, 18, you just got a license, what do you pick? You pick a BMW that you've been seeing everybody drive. You pick something with a B58 because that's what everybody says. Get a B58, get a downpipe and a tune, and then race everybody on the street. And that's the sad part about it, because the media itself doesn't cater to the car enthusiasts. It's catering to cars being an accessory now. It's catering to the influencers that are taking these cars, these super expensive cars, and saying, oh, well, I got a Bugatti, so you're not shit if you don't have a Bugatti.
People said they don't like it, and I said, well, what color is your Bugatti?
Or there's these other YouTubers that are doing budget builds of $40,000, $50,000 drift cars for no reason. Or somebody taking a Hellcat engine, which is $10,000 to $15,000, and putting it into a Mazda Miata or something like that. And 9 times out of 10, if you're Hellcat swapping something or doing something crazy like that, you're probably only going to use it to drag race. You're going to show how fast it is. Cool, it's fast, whatever, it's fantastic. I can beat a BMW. I can beat the Snack Pack. I can do whatever I want to do. Oh, I'm racing a Hellcat. That's the thing. And that's about it. You don't really have anywhere else to go after that because you've done everything that media has told you could do with a car. You don't have the games that are so in-depth that you could spend 3-4 hours on one track just trying to master it because you have to hit certain apexes on a turn. You don't have the money in game yet to upgrade the car to make it fast enough to handle it well enough, so you have to get good with the car that you have at the time. And that teaches us to learn about the car. That taught us how to think about the next steps of a car, and it taught us to want to go to the track and find out our limits of the car itself. We don't have a whole lot of tracks nowadays because a lot of them are getting shut down. We don't have a lot of ability to show kids the different things that you can do with a car because car games aren't fun. You got like 1 or 2 fun car games nowadays, but was that Forza Horizon 5 that came out in like 2020 or something like that? It's not the newest game ever, but you have Forza Horizon 5 that's been out for a while. Most of the newer Need for Speeds are god awful. I do apologize, but I just can't do it. I think the last semi-decent good Need for Speed game was Heat, and that's kind of where I leave it at that. I'm not going to talk about it anymore. You do have Gran Turismo and things like that, but those games are for people that want a full racing experience. They have sim rigs and they're doing all this stuff, or they have the VR headsets that they're trying to track for real. But a lot of the time, the people that are buying those games are a little bit older. And they're looking at trying to be a fantastic race car driver. They're looking to better their skills and things like that. But if you're talking to a kid that's just getting their car and they see takeovers, why do you think kids are at takeovers all the time? Because they want that hype. They want that excitement. They want that little bit of craziness so they can go home and tell their friends. They want to record it on TikTok. So now they have something that's like everybody else. They have some clickbait like everybody else. Oh, I went to this crazy takeover and this is what happened. That's what the landscape is today. So when you're going to takeovers and you see cars actively just doing donuts, you don't understand that you could take the car and not do donuts and you can actually drift with it at a track. You could take your car and go to a actual racetrack and
by the afternoon,
have lap
things
times
have gotten serious.
beat your own personal best and things like that.
So I reset my record.
Else come up and tell you, oh, hey, let me show you how to drive a car a little bit better. And now you understand apexes. Now you're understanding how to corner. Now you're understanding how to rev match downshift and things like that. And that's so many different things that a lot of the newer car enthusiasts don't really get because we're in the business of fast media. And all of this surrounded by the fact that cars today are expensive as hell, you don't really want to do anything. If you take your car to the track, what are you going to break it? You're going to break the bank's car? For what? No, I'd rather not. So I'm just going to get a downpipe and a tune that's not super aggressive or anything like that, just to go a little bit faster and swim through traffic. I might do a couple of circles or donuts in a takeover and hopefully I can get out before they try to trap me in there or I get my car hit or something crazy like that. But other than that, there's nothing else you're really going to do. Maybe a couple of pulls on some guys. You might have a gap cam if you really want to do some crazy tunes on your car. But for the most part, there's not a lot of people out on a road that are looking to street race like that. There's a lot of people that don't care to put other people's lives at risk. And that's the biggest thing. So the accessibility of cars has gotten worse and better at the same time. The reliability has gotten worse and better at the same time. The trial and error science has almost completely gone out the window because nobody's doing trial and error anymore. And car media has shifted from grounded and relatable icons in games and things like that to just flashy influencer hype builds. So before I go, I just want to leave you guys with this. Car culture and the car community as a whole has changed a lot. The accessibility is one of the biggest factors for me, especially the media, because the media portrays what you can and cannot do with your car, while the handling of the cars is another story. I think the media itself portrays what you can and should do with your car. There's not a lot of people that want to show their track day footage, or they do show their track day footage and nobody gets any views because it's not heart pumping and all that fun stuff. But the person in the driving seat is having the time of their lives. They're enjoying it way more than they can explain. They don't know how to, maybe we got to figure out an easy way to portray what it feels like or portray that feeling to the rest of the newer car enthusiasts. But with the lack of media surrounding it and surrounding things that you can do with your car besides just a couple of takeovers, a couple of drag races and things like that, things aren't going to really change for the better. We have to make sure that we understand that the games need to start to change, the community needs to start to change, and we need to understand that while we have our legends, there's legends out there as well. The new legends with the B58, any car with a B58 is a legend for most people. Just the B58 engine itself is a legend. You have all the snack packs and Hellcats that are legends. We have the GT3 RS that are legends. And we have so many other cars that we look at and we love. And we should start to give people other reasons to look at these cars besides the straight line speeds. besides the draggy numbers, besides just getting in the car, tuning it to shit, and then going in a straight line. So, you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much for stopping by. Please like and subscribe. Thank you. But yeah. Thank you so much, guys. You guys have a great rest of your day. Have a great night, wherever you're at. Enjoy cars. Please make sure to just let people know that there's more than just drag racing when it comes to car enthusiasm. You guys have a good one, and I'll see you in the next one.
Gotta go.